Hey guys, finally I'm here with the masterclass or analysis for the Gilad transcription. Let's get right into it. As they start the solo, they play a metric modulation actually, which I think it's very cool and it's very confusing, but that's the nature of the beast. They play a 3/4 polyrhythm, and that becomes the new tempo. I actually made a video about this for the expansion of the rhythmic trainer, and I go a little bit more in depth into that, but I will post that video as well so you can check that out separately. But that's what's happening. That's metric modulation, and then they go back into the original tempo after about 4 bars. Like here, they go back into the original tempo. This stuff, all of that, that is Bach. It's just Bach. 2-part inventions. I made a guitar version, or I made a tablature version for guitar once of the first 2-part invention. I will put it in the attachment as well. I uploaded it once here on Patreon as a part of the solo guitar course, or the Joe Pass thing. I don't know, it's been a while, so it's not very convenient to find it back, but I'll put it here in the attachment. And this is so typical of that way of playing, and it's very cool. So the idea is really to have 2 melodies going on at the same time, to really play in a contrapuntal way, and that's something I have been fascinated about for a long time, and I think it's really cool, and he really can do it very well. Harmony wise, I would say I would think this as D flat 7, so instead of major 7. Here, like this funny business, I see that kind of like a G7. It's also just a passing thing from that B flat, A flat, and D flat to B flat. So it's a little ambiguous what's going on there. The minor 7th of E flat minor. That's the major 7 going to the root chromatically to the minor 3rd. This is well, that's actually like an E7 partial arpeggio without the 5th. And then that goes to a G natural. So it's a little, can see it as a guide tone or a chromatic approach note for the A flat. Again, chromatic to the major 3rd. Then the 9, and then this. Yeah, that's just D flat major, and here this is a very cool bluesy little touch and ending for that. It's also very cool to see like this leaner approach to incorporating chords and voicings. So I also said this with the Julian Lage. Like, it's a different way of playing chords than Joe Pass. Like Joe Pass has these big chords and voicings usually, and these guys, it's a little more dialed back, which gives it a little, it has lots of color and it gives it like a lighter sound. We have an example of that here. It's a little sequence of the same idea chromatically. This is a chord that will come back a couple of times. It's also a very cool voicing, and he's really playing with the ambiguity of the sounds. We have C and G flat and a D, so that would be third flat 7 and sharp 11 of A flat, but then he hammer-ons to the G, which is then the major 7, so it's a very ambiguous sound. It works because it's a sequence, like it's chromatically half a step down. That structure really connects everything, so it doesn't sound awkward or weird. Very colorful augmented sound here. Again, C flat, so it's actually more a dominant. And here we have the third and the fourth of the chords play together. Again, ambiguity. And this should all be C flat and not B, if we want to be very theoretically correct. Now we have actually a flat 9 over a G flat, but he's playing D flat in the bass, so he can get away with a lot of these colors because there's no accompanying piano player or something or whatever. There's nobody else playing chords, so he can basically do whatever he wants. And here we have some triads, some open triads in first inversion. That's how I see it, at least. First E, and then D, and then that D goes to that D becomes a dominant, but of course D7, that's a tritone substitution for A flat 7, so that's the same notes, A flat 7, and then he alters it to a flat 9, chromatically up to the 9, and then the flat 13 resolving to the 9 of D flat major 7. This is very nicely, very clearly D flat major 7. Just the triad with a chromatic approach note, very typical. And then here he kind of expands on that idea by playing with the interval chromatically, and then the flat 7 and the 13, and then the third, fourth, tritone, fifth, and then here this is cool because this is just C for me, and he plays it over an F sharp major 7, which creates actually an F sharp major 7 flat 5 sound. Going to F, which is a tritone substitute of B, F, and then here he is already playing in E major 7, and this is also very cool. These, like a fifth and a second, like these sus type sounds, which he then sequences down. First a whole step, then a half step, whole step. So he's not really, he's definitely not sticking to the harmonies that are given, but he does resolve them nicely into the target tonalities. So he's going E, D, D flat, C, and then actually a G flat or an F sharp, going to E flat minor. Again, D flat. Here he holds that top note and then shifts chords underneath, which is very cool. This is just an G flat major with the G flat on top, A flat with an A flat on, a G flat major with an A flat on top, and then he plays this, which actually makes it an E triad. So this becomes G sharp and then B and E, which makes sense because A flat minor is also the same as G sharp minor, and G sharp is an upper structure of E. So he's playing a lower structure in this case. And this is one of many cool lines he then plays. This is an E flat minor. This is A flat minor. A flat minor, E flat minor triad. And then this is a chromatic approach note for that A flat. So A flat, F, D flat, C flat, that's D flat 7, and then going to B flat, third of G flat major 7, and then very nicely beboppy enclosure, and then also very clearly G flat major. Here he plays a sharp 11. So that's a very cool sound here. It's very bebop-ish. And then here all of a sudden he breaks out these wider intervals and again like the sus sound, and it's a very cool contrasting effect. And then here he goes into fourths. It's very nice to have that juxtaposition. And then here he quotes the melody. Again, little punctuations with chords. Very, very light. Makes it an E flat dominant. This is either a D7 or it's A flat 7 with a flat 13. This is a chromatic suspension, if you will, for this chord. So it's the same chord, same structure of chord. This is, I would say this is all just D flat 7. Again, the chromatic suspension for this chord. So G flat. This is also very cool. These arpeggios and then the skips back down. This and that. This is B flat minor 7, which is the upper structure of G flat. This is D flat triad. So it's the upper, so this is starting from the third, this is starting from the fifth, and then again a sort of an upper structure here. This is a G flat major 7 arpeggio. Again, upper structure. And then a B triad, which fits. This is the flat 13. The B is a flat 13 of E flat, and then the minor third, and then the minor 7, and then a chromatically sequenced line or pattern going into this. Well, it's like D flat major 7, and then it's also a very typical sound. This would be A flat, so D flat major 7 going to A flat dominant with a flat 13. The flat 13 then resolves into this 9, and that resolves to the root. It's a common thing in bebop actually, also this chromatic guide tone. And then we continue again, very nicely melody combined with very subtle and light like double stops or little chords. Again, flat 13 on the A flat. Again, a sort of a chromatic guideline which runs through. Here we have G flat and F, and then E. Ah, that's great. Sorry, I am on the free version of Note Performer, so it stops after an hour. So G flat, F, E, and then he goes back to F. And then one of the hippest things I have heard, this is just so cool what he does here and how he plays it. He has a very subtle way of playing. He has a lot of detail in his playing and a very nice way of using dynamics, and his phrasing on this line is just so good. So on D minor 7 he actually plays like a C9. He goes chromatically into a E flat, and then we have this thing here, which is just a D flat. This is the enclosure for the F, and we have the flat 7 here in the bass, which also has to be C flat, but yeah. Visually, it's not very pleasing. Anyway, 7 going to 3, and then very bebop again. Go check out any Parker solo, and you will find this exact line. G flat major 7, all very clear, chromatic passing tone. Again, chromatic. Well, switching tone or whatever you want to call it. And then here he goes into E, which is a tritone substitute for B flat, so just B flat, this whole thing. And then here, so E, and then he goes into D. Again, tritone substitute for A flat, going to D flat major 7. So he's actually playing E, D, D flat. Here we have those chords I mentioned earlier that would come around a few times, and they sound very nice. In this case, if it were A flat, which it is, we would have the minor 3rd, minor 7, and then the 13, and then 11, 9, and minor 7. And this pattern he transposes down a minor 3rd. So then we would get root 5th and sharp 11, 9, major 7, and 5th. And then here again transposes it down minor 3rd. And this is for me, this is really like G7. This implies like D minor 7. And then here we have a G7 with the 13 and the 9. And then here he just plays G7, going into G flat major 7. So he uses tritone substitutions a lot. And this whole thing, that's a thing you can do with dominant, because they're so related to diminished, and you can basically transpose certain patterns in minor 3rds and it works. So it's brilliant reharmonization. And then again, he, like a good boy, playing G flat major and nothing funny. F sharp minor 7, yeah. And then here B flat 9, B triad, natural 9, E, 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 and then here he does some like fiddly thing. It's not really distinguishable what he's playing here. And then again, a very cool thing using fourths and a more sus type of sound. Again, a little bit generalizing, so I see this as being D flat and not A flat. Because, you know, D flat, F, E flat, D flat, A flat. It's pretty D flat oriented, and then he shifts it over half step. So he lands A, D, B, E, and then going down this C triad, F. So here he modulates sort of into C, but this F is also the third of, so the F creates a sus type of sound within this, but it's the third of D flat major 7, which he then lands in here. The little blue note here and there. And here again we have this minor third shifting of one pattern. It's a pretty typical thing. Again, G7. So D flat 7, B flat 7, G7, that's how you can see it, all with a 13. That's at least how I see it. And it's little subtle things that I think are so cool, like just that he plays a double stop here. It adds so much just to have that occasional extra note. And then G flat major 7, G flat major 7, again sus type of sound. And here he just lands on that sharp 11 for a moment, or goes to the sharp 11 and then resolves back up. And then finishes on the 9. So this is a very colorful, very detailed solo, and I really like it. I really like this solo. I'm not a fan per se of like Ari Hoenig, or I'm not really a fan of that style of playing. They're great players, but it's not really my thing. But I really like Gilad Analysis's way of playing. So I hope this all was a little bit clearer. Check out the other video that goes only over the rhythmic element of the first 8 bars. Check out Bach. It's very fun to play. These 2-part invention types. I think I'm gonna do the 4th one as well. That I will write it out in tablature, but first I have to study it myself, and then I'll write it out. But yeah, I hope you found this interesting. As always, I hope you learned something. If there's anything you have a question about or something, just let me know, and see you guys next time.